Have you ever heard a story so haunting, so impossibly strange, that you can't decide whether it belongs to history or to nightmares? A march of thousands, led by children. A sea that was supposed to open. A miracle that never came. What really happened in the lost crusade of the children? And why did the world come to believe a myth darker than the truth? Welcome to Hidden in History, where shadows still speak. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, because what you're about to hear is a journey into one of the most misunderstood events of the Middle Ages. A story twisted by time, sharpened by fear, and buried beneath centuries of legend. Today, we uncover the real tale behind the so-called Children's Crusade. But be warned, the truth is stranger than the myth. The year is 1212. Europe is bruised, hungry, and spiritually exhausted. The previous crusades had drained kingdoms of wealth and men, yet Jerusalem remained far from Christian control. Into this world of war-worn desperation grew something far different from an army, something far less organized, far more emotional, and far more dangerous. A movement born not in royal halls or military camps, but in the countryside, among the poor, the displaced, and the powerless. Imagine a world where catastrophe is a weekly visitor. Failed harvests, plagues, feudal violence, grinding poverty. In such a landscape, people listen to any voice that promises hope. And sometimes, those voices came from the young. Two figures would ignite the spark. In a village in northern France, a shepherd boy named Stephen of Cloyes claimed that Christ himself had appeared to him, handing him a letter for the King of France. A letter urging a new, peaceful mission to redeem the Holy Land. Word spread like fire across dry fields. Thousands flocked to him, seeing in the boy something pure, something untouched by corruption. They weren't only children, far from it. Chroniclers described pueri, a term that meant not just boys, but the poor, the landless, the forgotten. Teenagers, young adults, beggars, runaways, even wandering priests joined the swelling crowd. They carried no weapons, only crosses, songs, and the belief that faith alone would open the path to Jerusalem. Meanwhile, across the Rhine, another figure rose, Nicholas of Cologne. Charismatic, intense, and barely more than a youth himself, Nicholas carried a message similar to Stephen's. God would grant a miracle. God would part the sea. God would lead the faithful to Jerusalem. By summer, both movements were unstoppable. Stephen's followers surged toward Paris. The king ordered them home. Many refused. Nicholas's followers marched south toward Italy, convinced that divine intervention awaited them at the shores of the Mediterranean. They crossed the Alps, children, adults, the sick, the starving, many barefoot, many dying on the ascent. The miracle, they believed, lay just beyond the horizon. And here, at the edge of the sea, history and legend collide. Later tales, much later, claim that Nicholas ordered the children to walk into the waves, that he raised his arms and commanded the waters to part, that the sea swallowed the innocent, or that merchants offered ships which later sank or carried them into slavery. These stories are powerful, but they are not true. The earliest sources, the ones from 1212, paint a quieter, more heartbreaking picture. Nicholas's followers reached the water. They waited. They prayed. They expected signs, storms clearing, tides withdrawing, something, anything, to show them that God approved. But the sea remained still. No one walked into the waves. No path opened. No miracle arrived. The movement cracked. Hunger and disillusionment scattered them. Some settled in Italian cities. Some tried to return home. Many died along the roads. The Grand Crusade dissolved like mist. So how did the myth arise? A century later, medieval moralists and preachers reshaped the event into a cautionary tale. They were not recording history. They were sculpting morality. In their hands, Nicholas became a false prophet. The followers became innocent children. The sea became a stage for divine judgment. It was a story that fit sermons better than chronicles, a tragedy that echoed Moses and the Red Sea, but with a darker, more punishing conclusion. By the Renaissance, the embellished tale had hardened into legend. Paintings depicted small children in tattered robes staring at an indifferent sea. Writers spoke of betrayal, slavery, and innocence lost. The world embraced the myth because it was dramatic, emotional, unforgettable. But the truth, though quieter, is even more human. The Children's Crusade was not a march of naive children, but a vast, desperate movement of the poor. They weren't led to the sea to die. They traveled there seeking a miracle that never came. Their story reveals a Europe strained by suffering and yearning for salvation. It shows how fragile hope can be twisted into fanaticism. And it reminds us how easily history becomes legend, especially when told by those far removed from its pain. What were the consequences? For one, the Church grew deeply suspicious of unsanctioned movements. Future crusades would be more tightly controlled. The myth itself endured, shaping art, literature, and even modern misconceptions about the Middle Ages. And today, historians read the event not as a religious crusade, but as a mass social uprising, an eruption of faith, fear, famine, poverty, and longing. In the end, the lost crusade of the children was never about children at all. It was about the forgotten, rising up and believing, if only for a moment, that the world might break open for them, that miracles were still possible, that even the poor could change history. And perhaps that is why this story, myth and all, still speaks from the shadows. Thank you for watching Hidden in History. If you want more untold stories, more truths hidden behind legends, don't forget to subscribe. Until next time, listen carefully. The past still whispers.